You skipped it, you dissed it, you said it's a bore. But what if that film's got a little bit more? What if I don't like it? What if it's bad? What if it's awkward or lazy or sad? But what if it's genius, a total surprise? What if it's gold when I open my eyes? We're watching the films you love to avoid. Now sit down and deal with your cinephile void. What if I don't like it? Let's give it a spin. You might hate it or love it. Let's dive right in.
Welcome to another episode of What If I Don't Like It, the show where we talk about movies you've been told you're supposed to love, and we give you permission to feel however you actually feel about them. I'm your host, Katie Baldessaro, and this episode we're going to ask, what if I don't like Little Women? Specifically, the Greta Gerwig Little Women from 2019. It's a movie that arrives with a lot of cultural goodwill, a lot of award attention, and a lot of people insisting that if you don't respond emotionally to it, something might be wrong with you. And honestly, I get why someone might bounce off this film. You might find the non-linear structure confusing or emotionally distancing. And the emotional shorthand here assumes at least a passing familiarity with the story. And for some viewers, the very practical issue of casting can create more emotional distance. This film asks us to accept actresses in their 20s playing characters that are first introduced to us as 12-year-olds and tweens. For some, that gap can be distracting, and the March sisters are meant to feel unfinished, impulsive, and still forming, so the maturity of these performances can occasionally work against that illusion. And if you're coming in cold, without nostalgia for the book or previous adaptations, you might wonder why this particular version has become the version people rally around. And those are all fair reactions. But these choices are part of a larger set of intentional decisions. Gerwig is not adapting Little Women as a literal coming-of-age story. She's adapting it as a remembered one. The slightly compressed ages of the actresses actually allow the film to exist in a liminal space between youth and adulthood, which mirrors the book's preoccupation with that exact transition. Childhood and adulthood blur into each other, not because the film is careless, but because memory is. The structure mirrors the way we actually remember our lives. And in terms of fidelity, this is one of the most textually attentive adaptations of Little Women ever made, even as it reshapes the material. Entire lines of dialogue are lifted directly from Alcott. Character dynamics, moral arguments, emotional beats remain remarkably intact. What changes is the framing. Gerwig reorganizes the narrative to foreground themes that were always present in the book, but often softened in adaptations, particularly around authorship, money, and autonomy. The film allows Joe's ambition to feel sharp rather than sentimental, Amy's practicality is treated as intelligence rather than vanity, and Meg's desire for domestic life is given dignity instead of irony. Beth remains fragile, but never really ornamental. And the performances reflect that balance. Saoirse Ronan plays Jo as someone perpetually negotiating between who she is and who she needs to be to survive, and Florence Pugh's Amy, played by an actress who convincingly bridges adolescence and adulthood, benefits most from that age compression. It allows the character to have continuity rather than a huge reset. And Emma Watson brings a grounded warmth to Meg, while Eliza Scanlon makes Beth feel fragile, important, but not just reduced to a symbol of this is what the character that has to die. And then there's the film's quiet insistence on letting women want things. Money, art, independence, love, recognition, safety, all at once and sometimes in conflict with each other. This movie doesn't ask you to agree with every choice that the characters make. It simply asks you to understand how they made them. So, if you've ever felt boxed in by expectations, frustrated by compromise, or torn between who you are and who you're allowed to be, there's probably something here in this movie for you. Welcome to the episode, guys. I am so excited to share this person with you. This is Holly Holiday joining us for the episode where we're going to discuss Little Women, specifically the 2019, so don't get confused if you're here to talk about the 1994. we will wind up talking about that as well. But from the Get Your Popcorn podcast, we have Holly Holiday. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I've been a fan of yours online, and people who've been following me know that I was on your podcast. So this is something I like to do, like a podcast student exchange.
Yeah, really fun. Yeah, you were on for Sinners and
Mm-hmm.
longest one to date. And I feel like you and I could do like a part two. We just went on and on and on and on. It was awesome.
That's why I said when I was like talking to you before, we talk before we hit record, guys. You're not part of that conversation. I said, I try to cap these at an hour and a half, but if they go long, knowing damn well that we have a tendency, and when I'm chatting with someone who I vibe with, we can go a little long, especially on a film like Sinners. Did you see the Golden Globes last night?
I did. I haven't seen Hamnet, so I can't be too upset. And I like Chloe Zhao a lot. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I mean, I'm definitely rooting for Sinners and for Timothy Chalamet to thank the Canadian national embarrassment that is Kevin O'Leary. I was like, Timmy, now I was neutral and now I'm rooting against you for that shit.
Hilarious. Yeah. I mean, it's always going to be hard when your heart belongs to a horror movie during award season.
Yes. My heart was broken by Nosferatu last year too, losing out
Yeah.
on cinematography, which was I
Yeah.
can't even
And it's gonna hit twice, and it's actually gonna hit 3 times this year because Frankenstein is also in that as a horror movie that has amazing cinematography, amazing costumes. And then we have No Other Choice, which I just saw this weekend, which is like very dark comedy horror. So they're never gonna know what to do with that film, but it's superb.
yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, Sinners, I want to see more love for that. I did love that they Zhao shouted Coogler out. They both went to the Sundance Film Labs together, so that was cute.
Yeah, it was sweet. She sort of gave her whole speech to him. She even the way she turned her whole body at one point, she looked back. She's like, "Oh yeah, the camera's over here."
Yeah, and Julia Roberts shouting out to the woman who wrote and directed Sorry Baby was
Mhm.
also lovely too. That I have to catch that one. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But focusing in here a little bit more on what we're here to talk about, introduce yourself to my audience. They might not know you. Let's hear a little bit more about you, how you came to film, how they can find you on social media, all that good stuff.
Okay, well, like you said, my name's Holly Holiday. I'm the host and creator of the Get Your Popcorn podcast. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, even Facebook page, Get Your Popcorn podcast. Yeah, so I guess the reason I started my podcast in general is I've had a love of film my whole life. I grew up watching it. Uh, my dad's a theater and performing arts teacher, or he was. He doesn't do that anymore, but so movies were just like what we did as a family and the way I would spend time with my dad. And so I watched stuff, arguably a lot of it way too early. My dad would ask me questions. He's like, "Well, why do you like this?" Was always a thing. And
That's nice.
why do you like it? What's good about it? What don't you
Mm,
like? All those questions. What do you think they could have done better? To a 5-year-old.
that's great.
And then, he would let me watch stuff, not too early that it's, egregious, but, I could watch Jaws at, 9 or, just, 2 or 3 years before, probably was best, but, and then, we go through and especially once I got into, Jaws, he's like, "Well, let's all the Steven Spielbergs," and then the flood hit 12, the floodgates opened, he's like, "Here's Martin Scorsese,"
Woo, yeah.
"Here's Goodfellas," and so just getting into film that way, and then he's a big fan of classic film, and I mean, classic films largely, even if the theming of it is slightly above your head, there isn't anything that you're going to see that's damaging psychologically. A lot of it, so I watching all of that kind of stuff, and then I had this really weird interest, and I live in Canada. I live on Vancouver Island. There's not a lot of anything going on here that's artsy. A little bit in this bigger city called Victoria, but by bigger city, it's still really small to anyone that lives in the city. Um, and so I don't have a lot of creatives to talk to around here. So I just started talking to the internet. And then I ended up finding some people like you and Harry Marks and a bunch of people to like chat with.
Yeah. It's a great community online. I actually stayed away from TikTok for so long because I thought it was like the age restriction. I guess I was like, "Man, I'm too old for TikTok. I don't want to dance on TikTok." And then you see Film Talk, and like, there's just so many people out there who want to talk about films. And don't get me wrong, it could be some mean people out there. It's not all rainbows and sunshine, but the good people are really good.
Yeah, yeah, there are some few like some film bros out there that are just just crazy. But for largely it's like quite lovely, I think.
Yeah, I try and stay out of the Marvel DC film conversations, even though I myself avid comic book fan, love graphic novels, love manga, so you'll catch me in the manga anime conversations, but anytime somebody's like, "Hey, about that Marvel," I'm just like, "I don't want to get yelled at."
Yeah.
Just really aggressive conversations where it feels like nobody's right, which is terrible.
That's how I feel about like Tarantino bros and even though I do like I love Inglorious Bastards, Django, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't
Mhm.
really like any of the others. But yeah, I'm like I it sucks because you're like I really like these movies, but I really don't want to be associated with you guys. Or and then there's some Christopher Nolan guys that are like real intense, and you're like, I love Christopher Nolan, but I think we can talk about how Oppenheimer was like it was okay. And Interstellar isn't the best film anyone's ever seen.
This don't get me going, it's good, guys, please. Maybe it's a little long. But yeah, those are great examples because I can think of everybody's gonna have at least one film from Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino where they're like, "No, I do really like that movie." Even if you hate the artist, sometimes the art they're so and that is why they kinda get away with the behavior that they get away with because 'cause they're so talented at telling stories that they get this universal, like, hallway pass for this behavior. So there's even more of a desire to wanna say, like, "Stop these assholes from being so mean," but also I guess let them making art. I don't know what's the answer.
I know, the way that I am, like, fueled in this political climate by the bastards is, like, incredible. I'm like, how should somebody I hate so much make this thing where I'm like, "Yes." Like, I made a video and it keeps getting taken down by, fucking TikTok, so but, like, I made a video talking about how whether or not, like, MAGA at the end of all this is gonna take off their hats, and I'm like, I think about that so much. Inglourious Basterds and The Sound of Music are my favorite Nazi-related films.
I love the way that we can make movies that are so clearly about Nazis and then and Nazi people will still stand them. Where there was this whole big article, it's like season 3 of The Boys, and there was a huge article where people were upset and boycotting the show because they came to realize that Homelander represented white supremacy and was the villain. And you're like, "It's season 3?"
Yeah, it's the media literacy is at an all-time low. The fact that Carrie Underwood played Maria in The Sound of Music and then went on to sing at Trump's inauguration is like like, "Bitch, you were in the play."
So it's entirely possible for someone to watch The Sound of Music now and be like, "It's about music."
Yeah. Like, imagine playing Maria and then being like, "You know what? I wish those nuns didn't take those spark plugs."
Nuns are the villains here. Let's be honest. So I'm gonna start asking you some of these questions that I do every time we kind of merge in here. But again, to just circle back around, if anybody wanted to find Holly online, you just gotta go get your popcorn is the at handle. It'll also be in the notes here as well. But if
Like,
you're enjoying this lively conversation,
podcast.
get your okay, perfect. We'll put that in the liner notes too. The first question that I always ask people is, what is the first movie you can remember seeing? So if somebody told you, like, when you were a kid, we took you to this movie first, nix that. What's the first one you remember?
Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
What if that is first answer for that one?
It's a direct-to-video Scooby-Doo film, of which I own them all. I have autism, and, like, my special interest is cartoons, specifically, like, Scooby-Doo, and, like, I wore out multiple VHSs of that movie. And I'll stand by it today. That is one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
I love it. I haven't seen it. I'll have to catch it out.
You'd love it.
Fantastic. Any sneaky guest stars? 'Cause a lot of times Scooby-Doo would have a voice where you're like, oh, a famous person was actually in this.
Yeah, Mark Hamill.
Say less, sold. Famous voice actor. I'm actually from a very weird place in Mass. Well, I'm not from here. I'm from Queens, and I'm just desperately trying to hide the accent. Queens, New York. But I live in a part of Mass.
Don't you hide that accent. We love Queens.
It's fun. Everybody loves the accent until you're trying to have an opinion about something like cinema. And then people are like, this bitch doesn't know shit. She sounds so stupid. No, I don't mean to make people sound bad if they're from Queens, but it's not the accent that people like to hear. They kind of call it grating. I
And
live in. Wait, what? And Boston isn't. Yeah, I know. My other option is Massachusetts. I'm actually in Western Mass, which has this like ambiguous kind of almost New Hampshire kind of situation. But the town has this myth about it because there are 5 colleges in the area. And the myth is that the 5 colleges in the area inspired the characters from Scooby-Doo. This is not true. This is absolutely false. But it really does line up because each one of the colleges have a stereotype that matches perfectly.
that's funny. Yeah, I love those little, like, internet rumors that are definitely not true, but yeah, that's my very first, like, memory of a movie. First one I saw in the theaters was the Tigger movie when I was, like, 4.
Okay, yeah. Wow, that's a just I am remembering that coming into existence with you saying it right now because I was a big fan of Tigger as well. Is there a scene from that other movie that like really still sticks with you?
Oh, yes, there's a scene in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island where, Shaggy and Scooby, they they're in the mystery machine because they get kicked out of this big house because there's cats and Scooby chases them, and they're eating their gumbo in the mystery machine, and they put on some hot sauce, and it's too hot, and they run kind of, like, screaming to try and find water, and they're running, and they fall into a grave, and they're trying to climb out of the grave, and they're pulling up what they think is a branch. They pull it down, it's like a decrepit, rotting skeleton arm. And then, like, a ghost pirate emerges from the side of the grave, the wall. And then, of course, like, cartoon physics kick in, and they can jump out of the grave now and run away. Yeah, as, like, I remember being, like, 3, being like,
It's like the 3-year-old equivalent of the scene in Poltergeist where they're out in front of the house and the pool and the bodies start coming out. They're in a hole and bodies are coming out. Like, yeah, that's terrifying. That would stick
yeah,
with me.
my daughter, she's 3 now, and so we watch Scooby-Doo all the time, and this is also her special interest, so we get along great. But she's, like, watching it like this, and I know I've created a horror movie fan because she's like this, and she's like and I'm like, "Are you scared?" And she's like, "Wow." I'm like, "Do you want me to turn it off?" She's like, "No, I love it."
And a horror fan is born. Beautiful. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. My other question is, what movie do you believe you've seen more than any other film? It doesn't have to be like a hard count on anything. It's usually your comfort film and you watch it all the time.
It's either, like, The Mummy, like the Brendan Fraser Mummy,
Okay.
that one, or Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
The third one.
Those
Interesting.
ones, that's my husband and I have almost 0 film crossover likes, almost none, um, except for the family, slightly action adventure genre, and so if we can't find the movie to agree on, we throw
Fantastic. So, why do you like 3 more than 1 and 2 on that one? Usually 3 gets not that much love.
Because Spielberg is at his best when we're discussing fathers and sons.
Touche. Good answer. Spielberg is your favorite director, right? In case anybody
Not
hasn't
close.
picked that up. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually did a summer of Spielberg if anybody wants to go back and listen to those episodes where I only did Spielberg movies all summer long.
After doing a summer of Spielberg, do you feel like there was one that came above all your favorite?
Well, yeah, you and I discussed it because you made fun of me a little bit. It was The Fableman.
The table. I forget that that is him and it's about him. I almost want to be like, it doesn't count because it's like biopic-y zeitgeist of, like, I put that to the side. Yeah.
The Color Purple is actually up there with like one of my favorite Steven Spielbergs, and like we can get it. There's a whole discussion to be had about whether or not he should have been given the opportunity to direct that
Hmm.
in the first place. But I love that story. I think it's so great. It's so hard to pick. E.T. is like earth shattering. Like that movie hits me to a point where I'm like, I love it. It's very painful to watch. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I guess to say, again, that's Spielberg dealing with parents and children. So, again, at his best, like you say. Yeah. He's got a range. He's got an incredible range. Do not get me wrong, as though I make fun of the Fablemans. I do not make
yeah.
fun of Spielberg. There's no legs to stand on if you want to say Spielberg isn't good. That just feels like what is the rage bait? That's not good. He's also a really nice guy. Actually, Spielberg has influence in on this movie. Well, jump back to the last question I asked, but just to throw forward, Greta Gerwig was talking to Spielberg about filming a period piece and looking for advice, and he was the one who told her, shoot it on film. So that's actually why this movie is shot on film. So Spielberg, I feel like he gives back to other actors, and yeah, I gotta have a bone to pick with that guy.
Golden Globes, he's standing in the background, I'm pretty sure, just looking unbelievably proud of Chloe Zhao and that just he looks happier than if he won the award.
No, that's just I do love seeing people support each other because it is a pretty cutthroat industry.
It's nice when people climb the ladder and then don't yank it up behind them.
Exactly. Oh, of course, of course. Especially because you want to be like, I'm the only one who does this kind of thing. When in reality, it's way more fun if everybody's like. I would love more stories, especially when somebody does well. Like, well, don't copy them, but join us. Let's have some more unique characters. My last question before we head into talking just specifically about the movie is there a story, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a short story or something like that, that has not yet been made into a television series or movie that you really wish would be?
I gotta think about that. Sorry, it's gonna be a second while I think about it.
No worries. For me, I always get stuck up on things like, I want to say House of Leaves, but that's such an unfilmable narrative that, like, God, how would you create the sets for that? How would you create the story for that? Part of that is interacting with the text. And that brings the really interesting comment that Will Eisner made about comics, which is the actual, or the medium matters, that like the way it is laid out, being able to stand back from a comic and see everything at once makes it somewhat a bit more meta than film, even though people say, how come a comic can't become a film? It's basically a storyboard. Well, because the comic has this way of existing that is slightly different. So when you think about, like, I wish this was a story that we could watch, not every story can be visual.
I mean, this is such a like Oscar baity premise in general, but like Jane Fonda's memoir has it's all really good. It's 700 pages. It's quite the read. But she talks about in this moment making On Golden Pond with her father.
Mm-hmm.
And her and her father have had this extremely distant, extremely cold relationship her whole life. And they're making this movie, and she's trying to get this movie together because he's about to die. He's got pretty severe heart disease. And he doesn't have an Oscar, and she knows he wants this. So she's trying to move heaven and earth to get this film. She has to fund it out of her own pocket partially. She's having to deal with Katharine Hepburn, who she like admires, but is a massive pain in the ass, and who is like trying to like get in this like little pissing match with her because Jane Fonda is close enough to breaking her record of Oscars. And I think it would be interesting to have that specific section of that film, part of like that film, with maybe cutbacks to how Jane's father dealt with, because her mother died from suicide and they just never talked about it. They never told Jane that she found out at school that her mother died from suicide. And he married this woman only a couple years young. Just flashbacks to Jane's childhood in relation to that, I think would be very interesting. And I want them to wait. They need to wait until Bradley Cooper is old enough to play Henry Fonda.
And he's got to leave his face alone. Otherwise, he's going to skip it. Just let it age.
Yeah. No more bleffs. He needs if they need to wait even 10, 15 years and then just age him up with makeup. But that's who I want to play Henry Fonda.
So kind of like a documentary of the making of, but it's fictionalized.
Yeah, or just like even like a semi bio. I like when they do biopics of
Okay.
specific, like the way they shot Deliver Me from Nowhere, like that kind of a biopic.
I
Just
see.
a little like, we're shooting, here's 5 months of this person's life.
Nouvelle Vague that just came out. Like, we're literally just with Godard while he's filming Breathless. And it's like a fictionalized chronology that sort of mirrors. I do like that. I mean, that was a great movie, so give me another one of those, sure.
Yeah, I don't love a cradle to grave biopic except for Malcolm X.
Yeah, it's hard to do a cradle to grave biopic as well because casting, which we'll talk about that because when you're doing a cast where you have to have people over their whole life or parts of their life, it gets a little hard. But I want to ask you, first question as we move into talking about the movie, why did you hesitate to see this movie?
A couple of reasons. Number, like the big one is I love the 1994 version with my entire soul. I watched it constantly. I have 3 sisters. Joe had 3 sisters. I never fit in. Joe never fit in. You know, I could never keep my mouth shut. Still, neither could Joe. She wanted more than her small town and felt like it was, making her come apart at the seams. I feel that way. Like, I love not only the book, but the film specifically and Winona Ryder in it. And so much so that when I was in high school theater, I played Joe on stage. So this, like, I do feel like this is like a part of me. Actually, a fun fact about that play. Oh, I'm blanking. The girl that played Meg and oh God, why am I blanking on the name right now?
The Meg in 2019?
No, like in our show. Hang on, little.
Sorry.
I'm blanking on names. One sec.
No worries.
I'm trying to remember the name of the character. I don't know why I've gone blank. I think it's because people are listening.
Performance
Well,
anxiety.
first, the girl in our theater class in high school, and the boy that who played Meg, and the boy that played John Brooke, they got married, and they're still married. That
I love that.
that play, and they got married. She's actually been a guest on my podcast. She did Catch Me If You Can with me. Her name's Brooklyn. But yeah, she married John Brooke in real life. They're together, and our theater teacher, I think, was either a witness or officiated their wedding.
That is so wholesome.
Isn't that so awesome?
That is so wholesome. That is perfect. I mean, this is basically the story of people's lives just being told. It could feel so boring if not for the relatability of that. Like this is but us at many times.
Yeah. And my very number one reason why I was hesitant is because of the 1994 version, but it's Christian Bale specifically. I love him as Laurie so much. I mean, he's one of my favorites in general, but he is so perfect in that I was so scared to watch someone else fuck it up. And I was like, I just can't picture it. It'd be like somebody else trying to play Rhett Butler. Like, I just can't even
Yes.
picture it.
Yes, there are certain characters for whom you can't have anybody but Jimmy Stewart do this line in this movie. I know it's a ridiculous accent, but don't recast that. There's
Yeah.
this perfection that was hit. It's almost sacrilegious sometimes to want to recast these characters.
Yeah, nobody else can play Michael but Al Pacino. Like,
Yeah.
how I feel about Christian Bale and Little Women. I was like, this is so that was my like biggest apprehension was like I love Timothy Chalamet, but I don't love Timothy Chalamet like I love Christian Bale.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is very funny because I also had never seen this movie because I too was hesitant because I'm such a big fan of the 1994 movie because we were of an age where we were perfect to be given this movie to watch it repeatedly on VHS and to just feel like this is us. I had an older sibling who was constantly bold in writing, and I was like a younger painter. So I was like, oh my God, I fit right in. I'm Amy. She's Joe. We don't have the other siblings, but they kind of hummed about in this movie anyway. They're much bigger in the book. So it just felt like this is a story about me, even though I don't care for Kirsten Dunst's acting as a child. As a child, it's hard to critique other children's acting. So it hits fine when you're a kid. And this came out, and I was worried it was going to be really precious. I was worried. Well, did you see the Sofia Coppola, this Catherine the Great with Kirsten Dunst as well?
No, no, I didn't. I saw like Marie Antoinette that Sofia Coppola
That's
did.
what I mean. That's what I meant to say. Marie Antoinette. Sorry. And it was something about that particular movie where it was like, oh, they've made it so modern and feminist and like twee that it just didn't click with me. And I was very worried that we were going to have that happen here as well. And so I joined the ride with you and I watched it to get ready for this with the same exact hesitations, which is hilarious.
Watched them back to back when I watched it for this podcast.
So did I.
Because my husband was like, he's like, oh, you've been begging me to watch Little Women for forever because he hasn't seen it. And I was like, okay, I gotta watch because I was like, I gotta watch this one for the podcast. I'm like, but I want you to watch this other one. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, you have to get this done. I'm like, no, I'll do it tomorrow morning. So last night we watched the old one so that he can see that. And then I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this new one. I'll keep you posted.
That's
So
funny.
this morning.
I did it the other way around. Having watched the 94 one a bunch when I was a kid, I was like, I got it. So I watched this one and then thought, what if I'm not remembering the 1994 one well? Let me go back and watch it because this one, spoiler alert, people, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're about to enter spoiler territory. So turn it off, watch the movie, come back, or get spoiled. Just don't come in the comments at me later. The chronology in the Greta Gerwig one is like, wah, cha cha, crazy.
Yeah.
And that made me feel like maybe I don't remember this story at all.
Yeah. I didn't love that. I felt like it really, like, there's not a ton of, like, conflict in Little Women in general. It's kind of them just going about their lives. And I think the 1994 version benefits from just compounding understanding of the characters through time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with Greta Gerwig's, like, rearranging of chronology, even though I know the source material like the back of my hand, it was harder to care about the characters because there wasn't enough time. There wasn't enough time with Joe and Laurie, just Joe and Laurie, to realize like how devastating it is for him to, propose, her say no, and then to turn around and be with Amy. But in the Gerwig version, we kind of open with this flirtation with Amy and Laurie, and we kind of work back to him liking Joe.
Yeah, it's really, I feel like at the heart for me, the 94 version suits the demographic that the book was originally intended for. Like when Elisa May Alcott wrote this book, she didn't want to be writing it. She actually was just like Joe, because that's the stand-in, really into writing thrillers and mysteries. But she was tasked with writing this kind of story, and she thought it was going to be a little bit boring. And her publisher kind of thought it was boring too. But it was her publisher's niece who was like, this is great. I want to read more of this. So that audience is served very well by the way that the story is, because that audience hasn't really lived that much and just kind of wants to see themselves and the way that their life could be if they continue to be brave and bold and live life to its fullest. The Gerwig one kind of hit me as an adult now, because it's like, oh shit, they this spends more thought on like what happens after you do that. How do you continue to still be bold and in this world that doesn't suit women and large and when you're tired and shit has happened to you. And this is more of a like memory of everything as opposed to a living. Like the 94 one feels like you're living through it. This one is like, hey, this is all in my head.
Yeah, totally.
And there's one aspect of that I like. I like it. Technically I like this, but also I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this because it's such a memory and it's framed within this memory and big spoilers because we get to the end, cutting right to the end. It has that like dual ending situation. Everything kind of gets framed as a like, is this what really happened? Is this what she wrote happened? Is this even how she remembered how it happened? Is this just a Jacob's Ladder scenario? How did that hit for you?
Love it. And it's part of this is I feel like this is part of it's pushed through this wave, and I think we see it in like Disney films too, where we're trying so hard not to shove down the messaging of like find your prince, that we just abandon that being in love is totally an okay thing to want and to have a movie end with maybe her finding it, and that was how I felt with it. It was like this version of it where we removed that it would be nice for Joe to have someone to share the weight of the world with instead of having to carry, like, I just like they have him like with Friedrich. It's such a, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but it's a very modern idea that we're throwing into a movie where that's not a realistic expectation for the time. And I like the way that, or maybe I just grew up with too much Disney, and I like when they kiss in the rain under the umbrella, and she found someone that sees her and loves that she's wild and loves that she's a writer and wants to support her and help her flourish.
In fairness, didn't Laurie always want to do that? He loved her for exactly who she was, always wanted to have her be flourished as an artist, would have supported her career entirely. He's kind of doing that for Amy now. Like, I don't think it's a lack of characters loving Joe. Like, I don't think anybody hates Joe.
No, I don't mean that, but I mean Professor Fairbear like also lives the like kind of writer living in New York, living in an apartment, doesn't really give a fuck if he's poor, isn't accustomed to like the finer things in life, nor does that he have a desire for that. He wants to show her the opera. He wants to do this. Laurie doesn't really care about that stuff. Like
Someone more like her, yeah.
Someone more like her. Like, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, I've already referenced it. Like, we're looking at Rhett versus Ashley. Like, these are both two rich dudes, but like
Touche.
Ashley head and Rhett is adventurous and fun and wants to take her to New Orleans and doesn't give a shit if she's a rebel and all that stuff. Like, he sees the like shitty part, and then Joe obviously is not shitty like Scarlett, but like he sees it because he is it. And
Yes.
and there's something so beautiful in Little Women about Joe getting to see herself in someone for the first time and feeling understood. And she doesn't feel like she's friends with Laurie, but she doesn't feel, and that's why she says, no, like he's trying to argue with her. And she's like, no, you're not seeing this how I see it. Like, we're arguing now. Like, think how it'll be when we've been married for a couple of years. And she talks about when she talked with Meg, like, you think that you want this, but you're going to get bored. And like, she looks at Professor Bear and she sees herself. And I think that's what's missing from the 2019 version is this like feeling of home for Joe that I think is just, because in the Little Women, when she writes her book and then she has this school, and it's like, well, she didn't want to live in the town. Like, she didn't want to live in the town. And then the one guy that's adventuring, like, we're not even sure if she's talking to him anymore. Like, that's for me what was really missing from the ending. Because I was like, well, I don't really like either of these endings for Joe. Give me, I like neither.
Touche. Have you seen Legends of the Fall, the one with Brad Pitt and Aidan Quinn?
Oh God, not in forever.
It's I think of that one because let's frame the whole conversation. This is going to be about the concept between presentism and historicism when you're reviewing a film, and whether or not you think about reviewing the film in the time period in which the film was released, the time period the film is depicting, or where you are currently. Presentism, we're going to review it that way, because watching Legends of the Fall, I totally understood that you're supposed to fall in love with Brad Pitt and he is the hot guy you're going to want. But he is such a douchebag. He is so impractical. He gives 1,000 red flags. He does not really like our lady character. And Aidan Quinn is way more reliable choice, and he's very sweet and very attractive. And so I constantly get caught up in this like pragmatic story when like the story is literally telling me who wants who and what's going on. And I'm like, I just don't think they're choosing right because this seems a little bit. So like, I'll give you the point where I'm like, well, I mean, Lori Teddy would have been fine, but yes, it is a better choice to have the professor character later on for sure.
Yeah, I might just feel biased because I did so like I am like admittedly going into this with a pretty heavy bias for the 1994 version. And then having the version of the play that I was in be essentially the 1994 version, but they cut like 20 minutes out that weren't like you can't show the scene at the opera when you're on a high school play. Like it's too meta. You can't watch a theater in a theater.
We don't have the budget for that by any means. Absolutely. That's ironic because the 1994 version is about 20 minutes shorter than the 2019 version, which is so weird because I sat down for the 2019 one thinking like, this is going to be so long, over 2 hours. And I'm like, that's barely any longer than the other one. What really makes me curious about the way that they chose to change the ending was in researching the writing of this book. Is that Louisa May Alcott wanted to end this book the way the 2019 movie ends, and they wouldn't let her. That's in the 2019 movie. That's actually from real life. That's how she wound up. The story's about her. That's how she wound up. She never got married. And there is some heavy truth in the line that Saoirse Ronan gets to deliver about the, like, I had this character, this female character clearly told you she never wanted to get married. To make her get married is kind of a like, oh, she didn't really know any better, which is an argument I get thrown at myself a lot when I tell people that I don't want kids, that like, I just need to grow up a little bit. And like, no, when people know themselves, they kind of know themselves. So does that ending undercut it? But I do really love what you're saying here about like, there's beauty in finding another person who so completely understands you that it bookends really well too.
Yeah, and I think like I think and part of that too, it might just be projection. Like I like that for Joe because I would want that for me, and I see so much of myself in Joe. Where you're like, why is it that Joe, all these other characters get their people,
Except for Beth.
except for Beth. Well, Beth dies anyway. Beth is. We'll get into her, but I don't like that when characters, you can have a strong independent feminine, you can have a strong independent character who tells people to fuck off and does her own thing, or you can have a happy ending. And I don't like that it's or.
You don't think that this is a happy ending?
No. She gets less. I didn't see it as like it's just more of the same for Joe. She's writing her book and she's ending it how she doesn't want to end it. She's getting less of the deal she wants in terms of royalties.
She did talk him up off of the royalties, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was just like, well, Joe just has to, I guess it's more the same.
Well, it is framed within the reality of being a female artist at the time. There's that wonderful conversation with Laurie and Amy where she's in Paris and she's talking about like desperately not wanting to do art unless she can be the absolute greatest at it, which is so extra. Such an Amy thing to say, I suppose. And then this idea of that, like, she wishes she could be an artist, but she's innately a woman, and that doesn't make it so that she can be fully an artist. She will always be undercut by things like needing a man who's going to do this to her, or having society put her in this situation where she has to write a story that doesn't end the way she wants it to end just so that she can get it sold, just so she could support her family because they desperately need the money. Like, there's a level of realism to that kind of ending, but also I saw her there holding the book, so happy to have this, like, bit of success that she never thought she could have, this little thing for herself, that perhaps that I envisioned the book as the man. Like, she got her man.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, no,
Like,
yeah.
I understand it's in context to history or whatever, but
Yeah, but your opinion matters too.
where is my happy bow?
And in fairness, upon ending the 2019 film, I was like seriously confused by the way that it was thrown together and the decision to make that ending. And I had to sit there and be like, blah, okay. So, like, there's something to be said for that type of storytelling being consumable or enjoyable versus, like, what are you trying to say? So, in your opinion, when you try and look at a period piece like this, do you prefer to stay entirely in the period that the film is depicting, or the period at which it was released, or even just now?
It's hard. I think probably largely when reviewing films, I always try to do it in the lens of where people were at when making it.
Mhm.
Because I watch a lot of classic film, and a lot of it would be harder. You can't filter a ton of classic film through 2025 because it just, it doesn't even make sense because of like how differently things have changed. Um, and B, just a lot of like our like day-to-day like morality stuff has shifted so much. So I think I tend to try and think about it in the time period in which it was released the most. I do love like, and it depends on different parts of it. Like I love when a costume is like historically accurate down to the last stitch. Robert Eggers, the way his production and design is like, it doesn't matter that it's in fantasy or, you know, historical fiction. He wants it accurate for how it is. Um, I'm okay with updating like the dialect in this film. Like they did update quite a lot of it. In the 1994 version, it's much more like directly. I if this felt like they were trying really hard to make it really contemporary and then just had them in costumes. And I found that disjointed, I think.
It definitely picked up on the contemporary aspect of it. Maybe just Greta Gerwig, she's going to give it a contemporary feel. And then going and sitting down in interviews and looking at what the cinematographer did, I was fascinated by the level of historical accuracy that it actually fucking had. So they lifted dialogue directly from the book. It's incredibly accurate. And the way that they made it feel modern was by allowing the actors to overlap delivery, which
Yeah.
felt insane when I was watching it. I was just like, okay, I guess just everybody's gonna do whatever when they want to, fine. And there was this insistence on the costuming being older than the time period as well as the time period. Like, don't just put everybody in 1860, put some people in like put Laurie and stuff from the 1840s because his costumes would have been purchased by his grandfather who wouldn't have known modern society's fashions. So like Jacqueline Duran, the costume designer for this, was like really going to town. And yet by putting it in people who were more animated than you get from a period piece, Timothy Chalamet, I'm talking to you, I didn't hate it, but that's you. And we're overlapping their dialogue and allowing the camera to be very active, especially in the first half. It felt so modern, but it actually was incredible. There's a lot of costuming decisions to be incredibly accurate. And yet my eye kind of missed that. Like, I want to say, like, great job, you guys did it, but I also feel like I kind of missed it.
Yeah, yeah, it did. It definitely read very like in terms of like the storytelling as contemporary. And part of that too is I think the nonlinear structure. You're like, why is this structured like Pulp Fiction?
And so my favorite Tarantino that I can't get away from being a favorite is Reservoir Dogs, because it was the first film I saw that was out of chronology. And so
Yeah.
like, chop a movie up, you can confuse the hell out of me. I'm still like, oh. But
Yeah.
that brings us to a very good question about the core of Little Women 2019. Why make another version of this if your intent is only to be similar to the 1994 version?
But I appreciate it. And like I have a lot of critiques for the like I like just to bring it down to letterbox ratings. The 1994 I rated 5, and this I rate a 3, regardless of it being. I still liked it. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just it is a remake that I don't feel like I don't feel needs to be. I didn't feel it needed to be because I thought, well, we have our Little Women, we have our pinnacle. We're good. Thank you. We'll move on. That's how I feel about and Harry Marks will argue with me about this one, the 2018 Star is Born. I'm like, thank you. I have the version I would like. No, nothing else. I'm good. He loves
I'm
Judy
good.
Garland. Don't get him started. But, um, there's certain movies where I'm like, okay, well, we're done. Thank you, though. We just need this version. We're good.
I feel that way about Night of the Hunter. We're supposed to, and it keeps failing in pre-production, so I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
But like, it could be groundbreaking. I'm still gonna be like, not good.
Yeah.
So
And so for me, like I appreciate, and I think the cast is talented, and there's some of the casting in this that I liked better than the original. Florence Pugh is exceptional in this movie in a way that the two actresses that play Amy are not. Amy is bordering unlikable in this film.
I really, really do think so. That is one of the big call outs because the 94 version does like a reset. So you know that this is a child and this is an adult. And when I went back and watched the 94 version, there were aspects of it that I really, really disliked because I had just seen the other one. So like it framed it very interestingly for me. I did not like seeing Kirsten Dunst next to Christian Bale
I did
because
not
that was
no,
creepy and weird. That was a 12-year-old and a grown man, and they're kind of wind up later. That's not weird. So like, or even the like Gabriel Burns is 44, and I know the professor is older than Joe, but this is a 22-year-old Winona Ryder, and I'm just like, I don't like this so much anymore. Stupid shit like that. Just reframing it, but I'm tangenting here very hard. I think that it is very fascinating the way that Florence Pugh manages to be both believably 12 and then believably 19. She's
well, she's
neither.
a tiny, tiny lady when the other women are, I think, just taller. Like she is 5'3". She is so little. And so even if she's 5'3", you put her in like a little flatty boot, she's just wee. And like the other girls are like 5'7". I think Emma Watson's like tall. Like I think she's like 5'9" or whatever. You put those girls in a little boot, she looks 12. I think she's flying in on her height a little bit on that.
It's such a dissonance as well for the actress who had just finished filming Midsommar and
Yeah.
came to do this. So like, I'm really impressed that she became a child after having just shot that movie. She called it therapy, her therapy for being out of that Ari Aster movie, but like, okay. And so that allows that when she winds up with Timothy Chalamet later on, it feels a little less weird.
Especially 'cause so much. Like I think Timothy is a year older than Pugh, but looks a couple years younger.
Mm-hmm.
He looks much because Timothy Chalamet and we're the same age, and he looks much younger
Oh,
than
but
I do.
Squidby. It's got a baby face.
Yeah, he looks like a little beautiful elf.
Kind of enjoyed Timothy Chalamet's version of Laurie because I do really love Christian Bale's version of Laurie. It makes it so much harder for me when Winona doesn't wind up with Laurie because it feels like, why are you doing this? You would have been great together. But when you have Saoirse let go of Timothy, it just felt like they were more friends than they were ever lovers. They did this really interesting thing with the costume where they would make pieces of costume for Timothy, and then they would make replica pieces of the same costume for Saoirse, and they would switch them out so it looked like they were sharing clothing. And I was like, oh yeah, these are just, they grew up together. They can't be attracted to one another. They're friends.
Yeah. There definitely was like a real boyish quality to Timothy's performance that I don't find as much in the or at all almost in the Christian Bale one,
Touche,
where
yeah.
it's easier for her to be like, "Well, you're just like you're not a grown up." And like in some aspects, I liked that, especially when it translates to him being with Amy later, for her to be younger and for it to not come off as odd.
As grooming.
Odd that you're dating a man that was so in love with your sister that you hate. It feels deliberate that he's with you, but like, feels very deliberate he didn't go after someone else.
I mean, I think I can't remember because I watched them back to back, but one of them says like, I always dreamt of marrying into this family. And it's like, Jesus, would you had gone for Beth then?
That is the biggest disconnect, I think, for the characters that I really disliked is how incredible I thought Claire Danes was and how much more Claire Danes was much better at being believably feeble but not weak in a way. Like like Beth is like very much portrayed as like the strength of the family, and like losing Beth really shatters like just the community because she's Claire Danes is able to make her that way, where this is I found in the new one, I can't really remember the actress, I found her to be very forgettable.
Eliza Scanlon.
And also,
Yeah.
they don't do a good job of her being sick. They got like one scene. Like, it's very clear, like, the whole time, like, the way, like, Claire Danes, like, moves, that,
Mhm.
like, she is unwell from the point she gets scarlet fever the first time. Like, that she is just sick.
My sister had scarlet fever when we were children because we were super into getting old-timey diseases. We were those kind of kids. It's not as bad. It's not as bad as depicted, especially if it's the early 90s. So this is a, like, I wish I could kind of part apart things where I 100% agree. Claire Danes is a much better actress than Eliza Scanlon is at this point in time. Bonus points to Eliza Scanlon for learning the piano to be in this role because that was a prerequisite to her being cast. Kudos, piano playing was good. I love the version of Beth that we get in the 2019 version because you get more of her story with Mr. Lawrence. You get more of the understanding of the importance of the piano, of her being a character that exists in the story beyond like a Beth's the one that dies. Like, no, Beth has a whole freaking life too. I loved that. But I don't think that she hit the highs that you got, especially when Claire Danes does that final speech about being ready to die in the 94 version. That is like, girl, give her a fucking award. That was
Yeah.
still hitting for me as an adult so many years later, where I did not have that moment at any point. It's more like Beth's kind of, it's like you're remembering Beth. If you were Beth's sister and you were telling this story, would you tell a lot of the story where she looked sick and she was sick and she felt sick? You'd kind of want to remember the other bits around it. So I get that. It just doesn't give much meat for the Eliza Scanlon character to even do. She doesn't get that monologue that Claire Danes had.
I also, like, didn't care as much when she died because I just, like, didn't find her to be, like, e and, like, that's what happened, like, I think and maybe it is just the structure of the film, but I cry at a number of points in the 1994 version. I cry uh, when Beth dies. I cry when Laurie, or I start crying when Joe finds out she's not going to Europe. When her manuscript gets burned, I cry at that. When Laurie and her don't propose, like there's many moments that get me, and 0 points in the 2019 version, which I've never seen before, made me cry. And I was like, why am I emotionally okay?
Touche, touche. I think So when this book was originally published, it was published in two parts. Little Women, and then the second half was called Good Wives, because there's all of their adult life. And I guess because I'm older now, and the 2019 version does a lot of them being older, there's this like more relatability. So I did cry when Beth died, but it had not very much to do with her performance. It was
Yeah.
with the way that it was framed, where we had just seen her get sick and live, and then we see her get sick and not. Because the first time she gets the Spanish flu, she's fine, and then when she gets scarlet fever, she's already like she's too weakened from that the original sickness.
Still, yeah.
She dies later. It's like, if you've had somebody die, which now as an adult I have, as a kid I did not, you often have this feeling of like, oh my God, I just saw them. Like,
Yeah.
they were just here. This feeling that if you could say, like, they can't be dead because I just witnessed them not being dead would undo it. And this memory of being framed in that sort of way felt very true to the way that I think about people I know who really died. And so that hit me. But again, not because of the performances, more of the context of the way it was framed.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't dislike the movie. I just
Mm-mm.
didn't I probably won't ever watch it again.
Touche.
That's, like, where I'm at. Like, I was like, "Yeah." And I think I probably would have enjoyed it more had I not had a version that I love.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's really hard to do that, to kind of enjoy anything different, when especially because you're demanding, like, well, don't just copy it, but
Yeah.
also change anything and I'll kill you.
I think had I jumped to the version, like, let's say we hadn't had we'll copy control alt delete 1994 for a minute, and we jumped from the version to from the '50s to the 2019 version, I would been like, "This is groundbreaking."
The
Like, this
50s one?
I think the '50s one is that the one does it have Katharine Hepburn in it?
Oh, that's 33. That is the Katharine Hepburn one, though. Yeah.
Yeah,
Katharine
okay,
Hepburn, Joan Bennett,
yeah,
Francis D, I think.
yeah. So, like,
Yeah.
comparison to, like, that version, I think it's, like, worlds better. But I just have a version in the middle that I just think is great, and watching it as a kid, I loved it, and then watching it recently as an adult, I was like, "No, no, my assessment is accurate. This is a great movie."
Are you a big fan of the book itself or just the movie?
I've read the book. I'm not as big of a fan of the book as I am of the movie. Um, Came to the movie first, and then, as a kid, like, Little Women isn't really, like even though nothing really happens that is, like, too, you know, inappropriate or whatever, it's still a book written in, like, the 1800s, like, it's a difficult read, so I didn't read it till high school, but I was, like, ready to understand even just, like, the difference in the way, like, English is structured.
Mhm.
Like, it wasn't until I had a little practice of that stuff with reading stuff in, like, English literature that I was like, "Okay, if I can handle the Canterbury Tales, I think I can do Little Women."
He'll be okay. Yeah, totally. It's interesting because when I was watching the 2019, I felt the most like, I don't know if this works if you have no idea what's going on. Like, I think this is good if you've seen Little Women or read Little Women and you're like, I want another version. I want to see a different take. I want to see a different framing. I want to see maybe a modernization. I want to see the camera do some interesting, subtle stuff here that's framing it. Like, there's all these aspects to it, but the question of what is the best version of it for you isn't going to be 100% anything, because if you're a really big fan of the novel, you might find the fidelity of the 2019 one refreshing and exciting, but you also might find like where it falls is not good enough, or you might really love the 1933 version because it's Katharine Hepburn and it's the first one you saw. And the framing, you could even just be like, I saw it with my grandmother, so it's perfect to me. Like, this idea that we're going to get a 100% answer as to the correctness of any version of any story is ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. And this movie always makes me think of Friends. You watched Friends, right?
Of course, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
some people haven't, and it's really upsetting to me,
Ah,
personally.
I think it's your age may dim. If it was on prime time when you were a kid, like, good luck not freaking it's Thursday. What else? You're gonna have Friends, you're gonna watch ER, you're gonna shut down, you're gonna be happy.
Yeah. What am I gonna yeah, that shows my age a lot. But, when Joey makes Rachel read The Shining and she makes Joey read Little Women,
I think about that all the time.
so shattered, and he's like, "Rachel, Beth's really sick."
Can I put the
And he ruins the ending of The Shining for him, so she tells him that Beth dies.
Yeah, yeah. I had a thing where me and my sister, whenever a book was too scary, we would put it in the back of the closet. So I totally related to gotta put it in the freezer. It's too scary. Just put a Little Women in the freezer. That's a great one. I do enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, but baby think of that. He's like, "Beth's really sick."
Really? God. Oh man. So something that I did think that the 2019 version did a little bit better than the 1994 version was the amount of space that it gave the adult characters when they were children. I do feel like we get to know Marmee better. We get to know the dad a little better. We get to know Mr. Lawrence a little bit better. And good because the casting on them is great. I mean, although when Bob Odenkirk walked in as the dad, there was a part of me that was like, nah, throw the whole movie out. This can't be a serious take. I love him, but I was like, what is happening?
Took a minute for me to, like, lock into that for sure. I was like, "No." I did love Laura Dern, and she had big shoes to fill with Susan Sarandon's. And I love the casting of Joe, like, I love Winona Ryder, but I I also love Saoirse Ronan. I thought she was great. Like, I thought she was a really good cast, and I liked I liked Emma Watson as Meg too. I thought she was great. I mean, Meg is such a deeply unlikable character to me. You're like, "Oh, you're so stupid and annoying." I hate yeah, she's just like and maybe that's just the Joe in me where I'm like, "Fuck your rules, dude. Shut up."
I do love that they gave her space to have a life after she marries the guy. Like, the 94 version was like, she marries the guy, it's over. This one, it's like, oh, she has a spending problem because she's stressed out because of those freaking kids. Okay.
Yeah. Or, like, maybe, like, her rethinking, like, her decision in her relationship, which I don't think they give a lot of space for.
Hmm.
Like, she was someone who wanted to marry quite rich and then ended up marrying somebody that cannot afford to buy fabric. Like, yeah, I like that they gave her a moment to, like, wrestle with, is she really happy? Of course, she throws out the line like, "Oh, I'm married to, John whatever. Of course I'm happy." And you're like, No, I don't think you are, but okay."
She's just fine, okay?
Yeah.
I really liked Laura Dern, and
Yeah.
I always do like Laura Dern. I think
Me too.
it's hilarious, that wonderful story about the gay men's choir singing to her when she was in the bathroom at the award ceremony. She is just iconic. And to fairness of Scissors Rand, and this is the opposite problem with the Claire Danes, Eliza Scanlon situation, where Laura gets way more dialogue, more monologues, more moments to shine. There are certain things where, like, they just completely wrote her out of the scene. Susan Sarandon doesn't need to be here for filming that day. We'll make it cheaper. But, like, my favorite scene in this film is actually the scene where Laura Dern is sitting there with Joe. Saoirse Ronan, fun side trivia, knew that the Greta Gerwig was writing this and just told her, like, cool, I'm going to be Joe. Like, that's just how it is, that just you're gonna make that happen. She actually was only supposed to write this, not direct it, but Lady Bird did so well, they get it out of developmental hell because, like, Sarah Polley was supposed to be doing it at one point. It just didn't get off the ground at all. Oh my god, I've lost my tangent. I'm so sorry. What was I talking? Let's get back to the original thread.
Well, they were writing the scene with Laura Dern as Conan.
Yeah, so the two of them are sitting there at the side of the bed, and she's saying to her mother, because her script has just gotten burned, that she doesn't know how to deal with how she gets super angry. Getting revenge is delicious, and she knows it shouldn't be. And, like, how she's like, "Oh, Mom, you're so patient in everything all the time." And her mom basically gives her the, like, Mark Ruffalo Hulk speech of, like, no, I'm angry all the time. I am just really good at controlling it.
My problem with that is we don't see Joe get like angry enough about that script being burned. I felt like in the Winona Ryder version, you're like, she might actually kill Amy. I just felt like it was like a little more like that. That is such a big moment in the play, the book, and the 1994 movie, and it's kind of just a little blip in this. And maybe I'm just a petty bitch, but I really would hate my sister for fucking ever if she did that to me. And I would remember her being nicer or me wanting to do, I don't know. And I was like, I like this, like, and I did. I liked that moment with Marmee or whatever, but I was like, man, this is a much bigger deal. There's no iCloud. There's
Yeah. And that's funny because
paper.
we actually watch her burn it in this version and we don't watch her burn it in the other version. So, like, it feels even more malicious in this version than the other version. But I guess, again, because we're framing it in that chronology of memory, like, the things that were so vividly upsetting 20, 30 years later, you're just like, I can't believe I got that upset about that. So I think that's kind of what's at play in this framing of it. But yeah, I think I would assume that's more intentional than not because you would be very upset in the moment.
Yeah, I would be pissed.
I mean, I've flipped a table over like a lost document on a computer. Nobody burned it. It's just bad technology.
Yeah, my sister didn't intentionally do that. I'm mad about stuff from like years and years ago. Maybe that's just a character flaw. But I was like, I wouldn't let that shit go that fast.
Never forget, never surrender. So did you have a favorite scene from this version?
I mean, I do kind of like Timothy Chalamet's like "Paint Me as One of Your Little French Girls" scene a lot. I liked that scene because that's the scene where she's talking about whether or not she's gonna get married and why,
Mm-hmm.
and give it context, and I really liked that, and I really like Florence Pugh.
That was another good monologue. Yeah.
I think that was great. So I think that's probably my would probably be my favorite of the scenes in the new one is yeah, I like that moment with Amy and Laurie a lot.
I was trying
How
to
about
think of sorry?
how about you?
Oh, definitely the scene with Marmee on the bed where she basically gives him the Hulk monologue. Because like so in the 93 version, there's almost a 94 version, there's almost a level to which like, Marmee, you're such a sanctimonious bitch. You're ruining everyone's lives. You're barely in any scene, and yet we're doing all this crazy stuff. Like she feels so holy for it to be like, no, girl, it made her human in a way that I kind of needed that character to be human because I've not really read Little Women, so I didn't get the whole picture of what was going on, and it felt like I got a lot more. With regards to the next question, which is least favorite scenes, and I was trying to think of what my least favorite scene from this movie would be, and it's kind of like a sad answer to say that I don't have a specific least favorite scene because there are parts in the middle of this that felt really boring and hard to remember. So I guess I would say my least favorite parts are the parts that I don't even remember, which is horrible.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a least favorite. I did not like the proposal thing with Lori very much at all because
Lori and Amy or Lori and Joe?
Lori and Joe,
Okay.
because I didn't, it's so, there's, there's a betrayal that I feel that Winona Ryder is able to convey in her performance that I don't think Saoirse Ronan does.
Mm-hmm.
This moment, I think it happens like, or at least it's happened to me, where you feel like almost like you've been lied to through a friendship. Like I think Joe had this sisterly best friend bond with Lori that they've developed. She loves him. She trusts him so much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's when he does that to her, she just is like, don't betray me this way. And there's this, and it just comes through the screen so much more than I think the one in the 2019 version does, where she seems upset and she's like, "Oh, like this doesn't work." Like, but there isn't that like feeling of like it's not coming across that she feels like betrayed by this act of what he's doing. Betrayed, like he's betraying her by growing up. And
Mm,
that
mm.
that translates so much better in the previous version that I didn't like it because she gets to live in this little fantasy child friendship world with Lori that he he's trying to make he's trying to make her grow up. He's trying to make her do the thing that she doesn't wanna do. And I think that because of how much I like that other scene, I was like, "I don't love this version because 'cause I'm just not feeling the weight that I do." I feel Lori's weight. I think Timothy's great in that.
Mhm.
He seems real sad,
Yeah.
but he's real sad, but I don't get that same from her.
Again, another scene where I wanna be like, "We'll take Tim, we'll leave Saoirse, give me Winona back." I don't care what the age difference is now. Yeah, you're so true, and then the Winona one, it really does feel that, like, you're trying to own me again. Like, I'm supposed to be your friend, I'm supposed to be your equal, and if I become your bride, our dynamic changes in a way where I'm not me anymore, and the idea that you would want me to not be me anymore is the biggest betrayal to Joe because everybody was trying to tell Joe to be somebody else, and she thought that Lori Teddy was the only person who didn't ever want that of her. So, like, that betrayal, that scene needs to hit hard, and I think I agree that Saoirse kinda gives it as a more of a, like, inevitable, like, "Why would you think that?" Don't She comes off more as asexual
Yes.
than not choosing him, which is again a deliberate choice and I think feels perhaps closer to maybe what Alcott was. So it's kind of a like perplexity as opposed to a betrayal. And again, it could be a deliberate choice of the actors and the directors, but for us, one hits better than the other.
Yeah, and it's not a bad choice, and again, like, there's nothing like, I'm picking apart shit about this film because, that's what we're
That's what
doing
we're
here.
doing. That's what we're doing.
Like but, like, this is a exquisitely directed, masterfully acted, well-crafted piece of art that I'm now gonna rip to shreds because I love nostalgia. But, like, um, I there is just something more there, and there is I don't like it. I just felt like it was so odd. Like you said, like almost asexual for her to then go and for a person that is involved in so much fantasies, writes these beautiful plays about bride level epics of saving, you know, Rodrigo is saving their whatever, and they've got these high societies and they whatever. And it's like, I don't think Joe is not romantic. I don't think she's asexual. I think that she doesn't know how like her particular brand of whatever translates into this society. I don't think she's asexual. I just think that she would be fine in today's world because there's a whole she would get a golden retriever boyfriend and she'd be like living her best life.
Well, yeah, I don't think this version I don't think society would make her choose between the desire to be a writer and the desire to have a romance. It's almost as if like the sexuality could never exist at the same time as success. And so this version of Joe is like, if it comes between men and success, I'm choosing success. So like, yeah, I get that there's a lot of different things in this where it's like, you can't have this and you can't have that. That's life. You gotta pick one.
Yeah. And I think for me, like I just prefer Joe to be portrayed more as frustrated than asexual. I think that's where what it really comes down to.
Fair enough. And like you bring up a very good point here when we're talking about a film like this. There are films that get lauded. This film is lauded. People love this film. To say that you don't like this film feels like you're saying, I don't get cinema. And that could be really hard and unwelcoming. And part of the reason why I myself didn't see this film, and part of the reason why you didn't see this film. So it's important to be able to say how you earnestly felt about it. I mean, do you find yourself holding back? Is this common for you, or is it just because Little Women is so popular? Or, like, do you try and avoid having hot takes on things where, like, you're just gonna be such an outlier? Is it worth it?
mean, it depends. I'm less so worried about it in my personal life than I am on the internet.
Yeah.
Because I just sometimes think I can't be, I can't remember oh, I can't remember what I posted, but somebody's comment under with the words was, you're a you're a trash person with shitty content," and I was "Okay, like, I just said that I like Sinners, but got it." Um, and also I'm not doing it because or I don't know what's happening on TikTok right now with Sinners, and half the people are like, it's gone crazy there, I've checked out. Yeah, no, I don't worry about having hot takes. I'm just precious about stuff that I really
Mm-hmm.
love, and I'm precious about source material that I really care about. And I feel
Absolutely.
protective of my memories, I think is
Yeah.
what it comes down to. And that's for me what it is. And protect like you could remake something that I don't care about as much, and I would be like kind of okay with it. Like something that I don't want things that I deem I'm good with trying to remake stuff until we get it right. And then when we get it
Mm.
right, we stop.
Yeah.
I would want them to stop.
Just
That's
be
how I
done.
felt where I was like, no, but we got the version. We don't need another or whatever. We don't need another Gone with the Wind. We definitely couldn't make Gone with the Wind now anyway. But
No.
like you don't you don't need another Godfather. I don't need a Goodfellas. I don't need a there's all these things where I'm like, I got it. We're good. I don't want another version of this. I don't need a Disney live action remake. I got the cartoon. Like,
You're gonna still get them. They're still coming forever until we die. That's the one I truly do not understand. And it's because we already own the IP. Yeah, it's amazing on the internet, no matter what you say, stuff that will get considered a hot take. Like I published something recently critiquing a small aspect of Stranger Things and got excoriated for disliking that thing about Stranger Things. Posted something I liked about Stranger Things and got excoriated for liking Stranger Things. But like, the internet is a hellish place when you have an opinion.
oh yeah, with Sinners, I was like, I've been pretty loud and vocal about my love of it, not just because it's a horror movie, just because I feel it's like a
Good movie.
if you want to listen to why I love Sinners or why we love Sinners, we talk about it for 2 hours and 17 minutes, the exact runtime of the film itself.
Yes.
Editing, and I was like, I'm gonna cut 45 seconds out of this so that I can
Yes, worth it, worth it.
so worth it. But, I talk a lot about it. I was talking a lot about the political aspects of it in some of the videos.
Mm.
And then I see all this stuff where people are like, well, if you weren't talking about this and you don't really care about political and racial issues, I'm like, but I have. They're like, anybody that's criticizing Marty Supreme and saying that Sinners should win doesn't understand cinema. Like, no, I do. I just didn't really like Marty's Supreme. It was Timothy playing ping pong Timothy.
And you can back that up with facts and things that you have an opinion. You're not just I dislike this,
I don't like shorthand casting. I think it's lazy. That's why I don't like this movie. Kevin O'Leary plays an asshole. You know why? Because he's an asshole. Timothy Chalamet plays an ambitious dick, and I'm sure he's an ambitious dick. Like,
I also find that it's a little hard to have opinion as a woman on the internet. As a female critic, I think we get a lot more aggression than the male critics do.
yeah, for sure. So like, well, what do you know? Have you even? One of the comments was that, well, how many? Because I said something like, and it was like kind of a joke, but I was kind of serious when they were talking about Academy Awards for Sinners, and I said, given the fact that Michael B. Jordan plays multiple roles, he should be up for multiple awards. I said, Smoke is one character. Everybody else is playing one character. Let's nominate him for Best Actor. Stack, that's a different guy. Or whatever. Somebody was like, well, how many movies have you even watched in your life? And I'm like, a lot. Like, I don't know. A lot. That's ridiculous. Anybody that says he's playing multiple characters, look at Robert Pattinson and Mickey 17. And I was like, it's like, yeah, that wasn't a very good movie. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Why are we comparing Sinners and Mickey 17?
This is straw hat stuff. I mean, they'll throw literally, and the the gateway for allowed criticism when you're getting yelled at in a comment section, I've had people say like, "Oh yeah, well, how many Netflix shows have you written?" And I'm like, dude, if we could only criticize Netflix shows by having written Netflix, you're gonna have to go yell at a bunch of critics you actually like.
Yeah. I was just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, well, saying, or it's like the people that are like, well, Sinners is just like From Dusk Till Dawn. And you're like, well, that's like saying like Star Wars Born is exactly like 27 Dresses. Yeah, they're both technically like romantic movies. Like
Avatar
starring
is just Fern Gully. This happens all the time.
it's Pocahontas without the songs, but I still allow it to be its own thing.
Well, there's only so many stories that are possible of being told. So eventually you do kind of tweak certain ways.
Also, like colonialism has been told time and time and time and location and location and location.
Too
I think we
true.
can have more than one movie about it.
As we draw towards the end, I wanted to ask you this question. We're talking a lot about this film as something that shouldn't have been touched for you. Is there any other film that you're thinking of that hasn't been remade yet that you want to put on the please leave alone list?
Oh, so many. Most
Ah,
of most of them.
most.
I gotta
I
think.
think is the qualification for needing to be remade. Anyway, we love remaking movies.
Good idea that wasn't executed that well. Because sometimes there's a good concept where you're like, oh, this just didn't really land for whatever reason, whether it be the script or the casting choice or whatever. I think some of that needs, like, I'm fine if something came out like a few years ago. It was like, not a few years ago, let's say it was 20 years ago, was kind of mid, and then they remake it. I'm like, don't really care. I don't really want them to touch, like, quote unquote, like, classics. Like, don't touch anything in the AFI 100, please. All of those. If you try and touch Lawrence of Arabia, I will freak out.
Why would you? Why would you? Yeah, I think
There's stuff like that. There's some modern ones where I'm like, I wouldn't want them to touch. Now that they've made Wicked, I don't want them to touch it.
okay, that at the cost of making it, you should leave it for at least 30 years. For fuck's sake, just save yourself some money here. I think that this really drives at the heart for reboot versus remake for me. I'm not often a fan of a remake. I find that they really very rarely need to be done. But reboots, where you have a different take on it, a different setting on it, something about it has been vastly changed. I feel like that is worth it. Because even when a movie doesn't totally land, my perfect example being Highlander, it's poorly made. Parts of it are very badly acted. It's a great story. It probably will be remade very well by Henry Cavill and given the serious take that it needs. But I love its campy terribleness. So even things that were made badly can sometimes be perfect as they are. It's confusing.
Like I said, Scooby-Doo, I'm a diehard defender of those live action films. Don't touch them. Don't touch them. I love them so fucking much. I have never seen better casting in a movie.
Too true. Too true.
That's if casting had an Oscar, those movies deserve. No one else can touch Shaggy other than Matthew Lillard. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Quentin Tarantino, get the fuck out the room. That man's the perfect Shaggy.
I made an entire video about how much I love Matthew Lillard after he said that. I'm like, don't. Everybody's talking about Paul Dano. I'm like, Paul Dano. Pfft. Listen here, Matthew Lillard. And no one defended Owen Wilson, which was hilarious. Everybody was upset about the other two. He was like, Owen Wilson's not good. And we were all like, well, yeah. But yeah, like that.
He was so good in the Rush. No, it was the Jackie Chan movie he was in.
I mean, he's kind of funny in Night at the Museum. I'll give him that. Well, I like cars.
No, I would say his best is Bottle Rocket, which is Wes Anderson's like first film when they were kids and they all did it together, and his brother is also in it, Luke. That's pretty good. I'll give you that. Great soundtrack.
Can I be honest with you for a minute? Because the film bros aren't here. I don't like Wes Anderson or Paul Thomas Anderson.
think yeah, fair enough. I mean, I won't excoriate you for that. There are good ones for me, and they're like, I do not like licorice pizza, but I do love There Will Be Blood. Like, then nobody's sacred for me, but that's gonna get you in trouble.
Don't
What do
bring
you
it up.
feel about Fantastic Mr. Fox? Most people really like that one.
I just, I'm like, this is a kids movie. Why are we making weird? Like, it just, Mhm. It's not fun. He's not like he's like whimsical, but not fun in a way. Like, do you know what I mean? Though.
No, I actually really love it. I'm so sorry. No, so okay, so like whimsy. When you think of somebody who's being perhaps try hard, and then gets accused of being whimsical to be whimsical, and I've seen Strange to be strange, but is there a version of that you like? So a better version.
Like, whimsical to be whimsical. Helen and Bottom Carter's fashion choices. Yeah, I like that. I don't know. Like, I prefer that. Stevie Nicks, she doesn't seem fun, but she's
Well,
whimsical.
and storytelling, like what's the most whimsical kind of story that you like?
I don't know if I would describe Tim Burton as whimsical.
I think I would in certain aspects, yeah.
I like his earlier work, but again, like, I don't like, I'm not a stan of anyone except for Spielberg.
I do love the idea that it's kind of like if we were taking opposite sides of the poles of weird in the cinema, you get Wes Anderson and then you get Tim Burton. I kind of feel that because I do like Wes Anderson and I do hate Tim Burton. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this. All right.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, but that's also partly like being like I'm the most like basic level alt girl. And I feel like Tim Burton is hand in hand with anyone who, like, when you're 12, you're like, I'm like different. Like,
Not like the other girls.
yes, like,
But I can see like part of the reason I dislike Tim Burton is because I feel that he is performatively strange. So when you say that about Wes Anderson, even though I don't see it, I know what that flavor's like and I don't like it. So I can get entirely why you would not like Wes Anderson if that's what's coming to the table for you. I also don't like that.
also feel like Tim Burton, I feel differently about Tim Burton up to 2000, like, up until Corpse Bride, differently than I feel about him post Corpse Bride.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like, I I don't like much after that. I don't like Dark Shadows. I didn't really like Sweeney Todd.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like, I did like Frankenweenie, that was funny. Um, I did that was, I'll give him a pass on that. I don't, yeah, Dark Shadows, like, none of that stuff I liked, but I love Ed Wood. I think that's an incredible movie.
Touche. I forgot that that was Bert. Touche. You got me there. That is a fantastic movie and great performances from Depp. I think both of them start to like
Lose it.
atrophy with one another. Like they don't continue to grow, and so that feels like meh.
Yeah. And yes, the same thing. I think Johnny Depp's a terrific actor up until the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and then it just all goes sideways and he never does a different thing again. So, like, I definitely do, like, my criticism of Burton, I excuse him up until Corpse Bride, and then Fair Game. Yeah, and
Yeah,
and Wes Anderson just feels like the, yeah, I don't know what it is about, it's, like, feels pretentious and performative, and, like, I'm pretentious, and I'm like, even that, I'm like, "This is a bit too much."
it feels precious. I could see that. I could see what you're saying there. And it's especially difficult if a director that your favorite director is Spielberg, like you're seeing a human span decades and continually put out well-received work across multiple genres. So to see other directors like atrophy or only stay like you're like, yeah, I know it can be done because my favorite person does it.
Or even, like, Scorsese's, like, another one where you're like,
Hmm.
"This is great," and, like, I don't like Coppola as a director, but that man takes swings in different directions that cannot be predicted. So although I don't like his work, I respect the hustle.
Yes, I don't want to see Megapolis, but I do want to see Mega Doc because of that. Like, I need okay. The
You're like,
documentary about the making of it.
I like someone that, yeah, I like somebody that takes risks and does different shit and doesn't just do, like, the same. over and over, which is why I give up on Tim Burton too. It's the same sort of thing. Where Spielberg, we're like, we're making an alien movie. Okay, we're making a biopic. Okay, you're doing a story about what? Jim Crow South. Okay, back to aliens, sharks, you know, Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
This is like, I see this happen a lot with musical artists too, where you get an album, you love the album, it's great. They release another album. If it's too different from the previous album, people kind of get pissed off and they're not that happy. But the artist wants to release new and different stuff. So, like, it must be incredibly hard for Wes Anderson to not be Wes Anderson. And the same thing for Tim Burton, because what gets butts in the seat is exactly what they've been doing this entire time. So to get the green light, to get the freaking millions of dollars it takes to make these movies, can they even change themselves?
Yeah, I don't know. It's because it cemented themselves into this pretty particular role in a way that I just feel like this is why I think that Ryan Coogler will be, he is the next Spielberg, the next Scorsese.
Yeah.
Because he made Fruitvale Station, then we have Creed with the boxing movie. Then we, swap from a sports, reboot series all the way over to Black Panther, a Marvel movie, which got my butt in the seat very reluctantly, and I ended up loving it.
Me too.
It's so good. And then we've got Sinners, which again is just like I didn't even know the premise of the film really, but I was like, well, it's Coogler, so I'll go see it because even if I hate the premise, I know I'll like the movie.
Same.
Boxing movie. And I loved it.
And now he's going to do X-Files, which is something that is very precious in my family, and we are so hyped.
That man is it's in safe hands. I would let him direct like the Sound of I would let that man remake The Sound of Music. And
maybe he's allowed to do another Little Women.
Only him. That's what they never remake Sound of Music. But except for Ryan Coogler. And he's exempt. You want to remake any of the AFIs, Ryan Coogler? You pick your top 5. I'll go see it.
He's got the full hall pass. That's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yes, my cinema rules do not apply for Ryan Coogler. I trust him.
Is there anything you'd like to talk about before we go to our final closing questions?
I think we covered it and then some. We're a couple chatty bitches, really.
The kids call this a yap.
Yeah,
Twas one lap. My final questions are always the same. First question is, and it's always funny because we've been talking by now, so if you don't know the answer to this, bless your heart, welcome back to joining us. Did you like the movie?
A soft yes.
I think you said 3 stars. 3 stars?
Yeah, I liked it. It was all right. I didn't hate it.
Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
It's worse than I thought it was going to be. It's worse than I thought it was going to be because I like Greta Gerwig and I like the cast, and so I was reluctant but had faith. It's worse than I thought it was going to be, but it's not bad.
That's fantastic. I am the opposite. It's funny, like, you have the dark hair, I have the bright hair, and yet I'm such a pessimist. It was better than I thought because I had such expectations. I don't know why I expected it to be so bad. Like, I genuinely was like, 1994 or die.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I as an adult and all this stuff. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, it's making me look more stuff up, but also like that. So would you recommend this movie to other people? Is there any kind of caveat on that? This is a movie that often gets recommended to teenage girls. Do you think that this would be a good movie for younger kids?
I can't picture myself recommending this version of the movie. However, like you said, like if I had like a young girl in my life and for some reason she could not access the better version, or like if I had like a few years when like my niece and my daughter on or whatever, and we're like scrolling through, and like I'd be like, this is a nice story to like sit and watch as like a family.
Mm-hmm.
This is like an appropriate coming of age, weirdly structured coming of age film.
Yeah, and I get that, like, I'll probably like the 94 version because I associate with those actors at that time period. Like Christian Bale is attractive to me because Christian Bale is an age that could be attracted to me, whereas Timothée Chalamet is too young for me. All of those like personal heavy things, even though I have gotten to act with Christian Bale and he is not the greatest person.
No.
Lie. I did The Fighter and American Hustle.
God, how was working with David O. Russell? Yeah, I can't imagine anyone on that set was great.
I saw Bradley Cooper cry.
From David O. Russell?
He was yelling at him so bad he was having trouble remembering his lines, and so everything was taking a little bit longer. But almost everything that would happen on set would be compounded by yelling, which always makes things go faster. Though both of those movies, I guess.
Do you
turned
want to know
out
something
fine.
funny? Just for a moment, because you said that Christian Bale was like more appropriately aged. He was 19 when he shot that film.
Okay. Okay.
Chalamet.
Yeah.
And just hang on. And Timmy's 23.
So that makes it's a real 6 of one, half a dozen. I am 1 year closer to Christian Bale than I am to Timothée Chalamet because I am 40. Yeah. So it's close. I'm kind of in the middle. Hey, I gotta stop selling myself short. I should come after. My husband would probably be like, fine, if Timothée Chalamet wants to be your rich boyfriend, knock it out of the park. It's
Yeah, sorry.
fantastic.
I
Sorry.
interrupted you, but yeah, I'm working with David O. Russell. Like I love his run of like The Fighter, American Psycho, or not American Psycho, American Hustle, and
Silver
Silver Line.
linings.
But after learning what a shitty person he is, I'm like,
I don't think films need to be made like that. I think we can do just fine telling stories without having to do that kind of behavior on set. I'm not sure it evokes the best performance out of people. I think people still did a good job despite what was happening on set.
plus I don't like people are really like revere Stanley Kubrick and like well he tortured those actors. I don't
I don't care
have
for
a
that.
like who else is it? Which one is it? Is it David Lynch or is it Ridley Scott that does like the million fucking takes? Who directed? Maybe I'm thinking of a third person. Who directed Zodiac?
That's Fincher.
Fincher. I'm thinking of David Fincher. He, like purposely tried to like torture Jake Gyllenhaal on set to make him feel crazy.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, that kind of like method acting that gets evolved where like just fucking do your job. This is ridiculous. It was a very interesting conversation online about that regarding like the prevalence for male actors and directors to want to do that kind of behavior and female actresses not being like when you think of method actors, the first ones that come to mind are often men who are problematic. So is this a way to excuse problematic behavior?
Well, it is, and it's like you're extending the method beyond what it needs to be. Because Jane Fonda is a method actress,
There
but
are method actresses.
she's method when she's in the fucking scene
That it's called acting.
on set. She doesn't go home and fucking or whatever. She goes like when she did some sort of TV movie or whatever about like a woman who was from Appalachia. She like went and visited the place and like learned about it. But was, like, respectful to the people, like, learning about it. She was curious.
Yeah, doing research is a little bit different than like harassing your family because you're now this sociopath.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if a woman did that and came home? Can you imagine that shit? If you, or a fucking what's his face? Daniel Day-Lewis that everybody thinks is great, having extras or whatever, interns carry him around set on my left foot. You're
Yeah.
like and making people feed him. Like, get over it. You're not the greatest actor in the world if you can't just you know what's amazing? Watching a man run around a set and then the next moment, paralyzed.
You got to be able to turn it on and turn it off. That's part of your job. It's a level of indulgence that feels ridiculous to the like Daniel Day-Lewis is a wonderful actor who gives great performances. I would be more impressed if he didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Or like Jared Leto when he played the Joker, like when he sent people like dead rats or some shit. And can
God,
you imagine if a woman did that?
just
Catherine Weigel was deemed difficult to work with because she said that the material for the way that her character was written and knocked up was she was viewed as unfairly like bitchy compared to her male counterparts. She was then basically blacklisted for that, and then also criticizing the script for the season of Grey's Anatomy where she cuts the Alvad wire, which is a bad script. She made 2 very fair criticisms about her characters, which she's entitled to do. She's blacklisted. Jared Leto can fuck kids and send people dead rats, and he got an Oscar.
I feel like that guy is a whole bag of just throw it out. T to B, just throw it out. It is impressive the way we excuse that kind of behavior. Yeah. So
Yeah. Final thought.
Final thought on that.
I
Yeah,
don't know we got there.
it's good. So yeah, it's wonderful to end an episode about Little Women by talking about the inexcusable behavior of adult men.
Yeah.
Again, I want to thank you for being here. This has been such a lovely chat. We could go forever. We could go past the runtime of both of these movies. And I want to encourage my audience to check you out again. The links will be in the liner notes. Get Your Popcorn podcast. Holly Holiday, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
As always, a joy. Welcome to Corrections and Omissions. This is the part of the show where we talk about stuff that maybe we didn't totally say correct, maybe we left out, something we didn't fully cover, that kind of stuff. And this episode is actually pretty rare because there isn't anything that we didn't cover correctly, or if we needed to try and figure it out, we figured it out while we were still on air. We figured out who directed Zodiac. It was David Fincher. And so this isn't really gonna be corrections and omissions and trivia. It's gonna just be trivia and more. So sit back for, I guess, what the kids would call a bit of a yap on the 2019 Greta Gerwig Little Women. Oh, wait, just one more thing. I was talking to Holly offline regarding our conversation where we were talking about movies that need to be remade or reboot or redone. And she did want to say, Don't Worry, Darling was a movie that, in retrospect, she thought really did deserve perhaps to be redone. And I have to agree, especially because it's such an interesting script. That script was actually on the blacklists of scripts, which is a good thing, not a bad thing, and really was regarded as something that should be made into a great movie. I'm not saying they didn't do a decent job. I do believe that a lot of the scandal and everything going on with the cast and the director during its release had a huge negative impact on it, and maybe perhaps doing a reboot or a remake would be worthwhile for that particular script. One of the first things that Greta Gerwig does in Little Women is reset our expectations of comfort. The March House isn't meant to feel cozy in the usual way. I mean, it's tight. The ceilings are low. The staircases are narrow. The rooms are crowded. Well, production designer Jess Gonchard built the space to reflect financial strain, but also emotional pressure. The house is warm, but it doesn't give you much room to breathe. And that matters because this version of the story isn't treating home as a pure ideal. It's treating it as something that protects you and limits you at the same time. That same approach shows up in how the film handles Beth's illness. Gerwig keeps it restrained on purpose. There's very little score pushing up the emotion, and the camera doesn't really linger on Beth's suffering. It can feel almost distant. But that choice lines up with how Louisa May Alcott wrote the character. Alcott believed that too much sentiment would undercut the seriousness of the story. And so Gerwig sticks with that restraint, even knowing that some viewers might feel held at arm's length. And the film doesn't ask you to cry on cue. It's supposed to ask you to sit with the loss in the way that memory does. And that idea of incompleteness carries over into Laurie. Timothée Chalamet's version of the character is intentionally a little unfinished. His clothes don't fit perfectly, his hair is loose, his posture is casual to the point of being unfocused. Well, costume designer Jacqueline Duran avoided clean tailoring on purpose. Laurie is rich and charming, but he's also indulged and directionless. The film isn't presenting him as a romantic answer, it's presenting him as someone who hasn't figured out who he is yet. A lot of people talk about the film's color palette as a way to track time, but it's actually tracking emotion. Warm gold tones signal belonging and safety, and cold blues and grays signal isolation. And that's true whether we're in the past or the present. Well, cinematographer Jörg Lissack said that the colors are about emotional access, not chronology. And that's why some childhood scenes feel cold and some adult scenes feel warm. The timeline matters less than whether the characters are feeling connected. This is the only adaptation that shows writing as work. Jo writes standing up, she moves around, she rushes to meet deadlines. It's physical and stressful and necessary. There's no romantic montage of inspiration. Louisa May Alcott described writing as fast, exhausting labor done to pay the bills, and the film takes that seriously. Writing here isn't just self-expression, it's survival. And that unsentimental approach took years to land. Sony officially announced this Little Women adaptation in 2013 with Olivia Milch writing the screenplay. And then in 2015, producer Amy Pascal came on board with Sarah Polley, who was hired to write, and was briefly discussed as a possible director. But that version never moved forward. Greta Gerwig wasn't brought in until 2016, and even then, it was only to rewrite the script, not to direct it. It wasn't until 2018, after Lady Bird had proven her voice and her range, that Sony officially named her director. Gerwig has said she wasn't initially on the studio's list to direct at all. It was her insistence on restructuring the story and explaining why it had to be told this way that ultimately convinced them. And speaking of time, some of the performances were shaped by timing as much as intention. Emma Watson joined the film late, replacing Emma Stone after Stone had to drop out because of scheduling conflicts. And that meant that Watson had less rehearsal time, and that subtly shaped Meg into quite possibly the most grounded and traditional sister. Meg feels stable, practical, rooted, and that kind of fits the character and the production very well. The adults in this film are also played against expectation. Bob Odenkirk was cast as Mr. March because Greta Gerwig wanted someone who could bring an under-the-surface warmth without tipping into sentimentality or traditional dad energy. And Gerwig has said she always knew she wanted someone like him because she wanted the father to kind of be a presence that felt real but slightly detached and quietly funny rather than overtly comforting. She didn't want the father to anchor the story in an emotional way. She explained in conversations that she pictured Father March as someone who was like in a Jane Austen way, that's a little checked out about the proceedings of what's going on in his own house, but also really likes his daughters a lot. And that casting of Odenkirk, for me, works perfectly. It finds that balance dead on. And that choice shapes how the character functions in the story, because Mr. March doesn't really get to deliver big speeches or stand at the emotional center of this version of Little Women. His absence sets the stage for the women's stories to carry the narrative. I mean, Odenkirk himself has noted that in this film, the men are secondary. They're not meaningless, they're just secondary because the movie is centered on the women's stories. And this lines up with Gerwig's intentions. March's role is structural, not contextual, not sentimental, not a guide rail. And casting someone known for subtlety, an actor who built a career on characters defined by restraint and intelligence and internal life, allowed the film to show who March is and what happens when he isn't there without directing the audience's emotional response so heavily. And Marmee was also cast in a similar fashion. Laura Dern was cast in part because Gerwig wanted a mother who wasn't saintly. This Marmee is tired. She gets angry. She is politically aware and sometimes frustrated. And Dern's real-life activism lined up with a version of Marmee who understands how much restraint costs women. And that practicality shows up again in Aunt March. Meryl Streep helped sharpen the whole character. I mean, during rehearsals, she leaned into the bluntness and the humor and rewrote some of her own lines. And that means that Aunt March doesn't really come off as so polished. She gets to talk about things bluntly, like love and fulfillment and money. She gets to say out loud what the film keeps having to circle around. Financial reality shapes every choice of these women's lives. And back to the younger characters. Gerwig also encouraged collaboration there. Timothy Chalamet improvised a lot of Laurie's physicality, his pacing, his slouching, his restlessness. Those small movements help make him feel unsettled rather than romantic. I mean, he's always shifting because he doesn't quite know where he belongs. It's quite the ensemble cast, and the whole sense of closeness that you get from them comes from time that they actually spent together off camera. Gerwig pushed for shared meals and downtime so that the actors could develop real rhythms with each other. And that's why the dialogue overlaps and the scenes that are messy feel more so in a lived in way. It doesn't feel staged because it wasn't entirely. And all of this leads to the final bookbinding scene. Joe smiles, but the process itself is mechanical. Ink is pressed, pages are stamped, the book becomes a product. And when Holly and I were talking about this moment, we didn't agree on how it felt. Holly saw it as less happy than the 1994 version, which offers a clearer emotional resolution. I saw it as a happy ending, maybe not romantic, but earned. Joe gets published, the work exists, there's momentum. And what's interesting is that Gerwig describes the ending as neither a victory nor a defeat, but a visible compromise. And all three of these perspectives exist at once. The director defines the terms of the moment, but the emotional meaning isn't locked in. And that's why this adaptation keeps going. It doesn't tell you how to feel. It shows you how the system works. It shows you family, money, labor, love. It trusts you to decide where you want to land on all of that. And that openness isn't a flaw. It's the point. And that's a wrap on today's deep dive into Little Women. Huge thanks to Holly Holiday from the Get Your Popcorn podcast for joining me and sharing in on this conversation. If you want to listen to us talk about Sinners, go check her out. All of that stuff's going to be in the liner notes. I highly encourage you to find out more about them. Their stuff is awesome. I really like her. Thank you all for tuning in. And of course, I'll see you on the next episode.